Hello guys, how are you doing today? Now, I'm going to show you guys what it's like outside today. I'm up here in the woodworking shop, and you know, this is the reason why I'm not working on the truck. We got a freak winter storm up here, and I'm going to tell you, this was one freak of a storm. Now, you see, out there, there's my car. It looks like a mushroom covered with snow, like a big marshmallow. Eh? And there's a layer of ice mixed in with the snow. Freezing rain come down on top of the snow, and it makes it almost impossible to shovel the stuff. So the sun has been peeking out in spots today. And it's starting to come out right now, the sun. And I can feel the temperature's just slightly above freezing today. And so, I'm going to let it melt down a little bit. Tell you the truth, this is March now, and I think it's going to melt down. And so, you know, I'm held up, you know, here. I'm kind of stuck in the house, you know. Anyway. You know, I think what I'll do is I think I'll tell you guys a story, you know. It's the only thing I can do until I can get rid of this snow, you know. Anyway, here's a story. Yeah, I'll tell you guys a story about slingshot and rubber band. My aunt, my dad's sister, she's a bit younger than him. Her name's Violet. She had 2 kids, you know. She was married to this guy called Wayne Small. That was his name was. So she was Violet Small. She had these 2 kids. And one of them was about, I guess, 7 years old. And the other one was, I think, 8 years old. And they came down to Florida to visit us on vacation. They were staying in our house. And Violet and her husband, Wayne Small, and her 2 kids. And we had a fair-sized house. I think it was like 4 bedrooms, you know. Anyway, my mother, you know, had got an extra spare bedroom, and they were staying in the spare bedroom on their vacation to Florida. Now, Wayne was kind of Wayne Small, he was kind of an interesting kind of fellow. He was in Ontario, and there's an awful lot of business deals and stuff going on in Ontario. They're constantly doing business. At least back in those days, that's the way it was around Ontario. The people from Ontario, they would shake your hand. They'd say, meet you for the first time. And they would say, what kind of work are you in? It's the first thing they would ask you. Are you doing any good business? You got anything going? They would ask you. That's the first thing that they would say to you. So people from Ontario during that period of time, very industrious to make money, make money, fast, 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 fast. You know, how much money are you making? How much money are you making, they'd say, you know. We were living in the laid-back South. What can I say, you know? But they came down on vacation. Wayne was all about making money. He was going to make $1 million before he was like 35 or whatever. I can't remember exactly what the figures were, but anyway. So that first night, you know, sitting around the dining room table after we had ate, you know, and Wayne was there, my dad was there, my mother was there, Violet was there, and the 2 kids were off playing in the living room doing something. And I'll tell you about them in a minute. But Wayne was like to my dad, I got this new business for you, Glenn. It's so great. Up in Canada. And all I need is an investment of $5,000. And he was on the table, and he had a pencil, and he had a paper, and he was writing down and showing my dad the different parts and how they were going to buy this facility, and they were going to do whatever they were going to do, you know, and it was going to make a lot of money. I can't remember exactly what it was. It might have been water beds. I think it might have been water beds. They were going to build water beds. You know, but they're hire a factory, he says, and we're going to get right on it right away, and all I need is your initial investment, and I got my investment, and we're going to go on this, and it's going to be a big project. Big things are happening, you know. And he was talking, and his arms were waving around. He got he was kind of short, and he had kind of a portly belly, and he was like swinging his arms around. We're going to do this. And my dad was all sitting back there, and he was like, yeah, okay. But you want me to invest. And my dad's kind of a little bit slow that way. He just doesn't. He's very smart, very intelligent, but Wayne had to go over it 2 or 3 times. Wayne go back to the table and go back to the drawing board, and he'd get that paper there, he'd push it up to my dad. My dad'd be scratching his head looking at it, and Wayne was doing these little doodles on the paper, and he's saying, "This is how we make the money, and we're going to put the money in here, in this savings account here, and then the company is going to start a company business or whatever," and he was going on and on and on, And my dad was only half interested. So the evening went along that way for a while, and my dad says, "I want to play some music." So we went over, and they started strumming, and Wayne started strumming on the guitar, and Wayne was a real strummer. He was one of those guys that strums really loud, strum, and just all you can hear is that guitar being strummed really hard, using a pick, and he's going down really hard on it, wanging at it with his hand, wang, 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 and singing real loud. And my dad was sitting over next to him playing the banjo softly. You couldn't even hear him plucking. Wayne was drowning him out completely. So the evening went on that way, and they played for an hour or two, and then everybody went to bed. Well, the next day, Wayne was taking my dad in to show him something. I can't remember what it was. And my mom and Violet were there. And anyway, what happened was the boys started to go out in the yard to play. Now, my dad used to call those boys Slingshot, he called one of them, and the other one he called Rubber Band, because they had so much energy. They were always running around getting into trouble. So, I'll tell you, Violet opened the door, and they went running out so fast, wing, zing, wing, around the corner. Their legs were going so fast, the two of them were scrambling across it, and one of them fell, and he scrambled out. You ever seen... They're just wild. They just went running off into the yard, went running down to the field, went running back into the backyard. And I was like standing there, and my mother says, "You keep your eye on those boys." My mother looks at me and says, I says, "How? They're gone already. They've taken off like zoom. As soon as the door opened, they were scrambling out and scrambling off, and God knows where they are." I said, I was a big boy by then. I was a bit older than them, What I didn't know was they were around the back of the house doing something. I didn't know what they were doing. After a while, they come back around the other side of the house, and, one of them had got my bow and arrow. He'd found a bow and arrow I had out in the back shed, and some arrows. I had some arrows. It was a real bow. It wasn't a real strong bow. It was like 20 pounds pull. It was a fiberglass bow, and but it was real arrows and real points on the tips, And these boys had to hold this bow and arrow, and they were shooting the arrows around the yard, and they aimed one at me. And they didn't let go of it, though. He had the thing pulled back and aimed it at me, and he didn't let go. Thank goodness, because I'll tell you, that thing would go in you 6 inches deep. So anyway, he didn't shoot me with it, thank God, and I went over and got it away from him. But I went out back, and they had been shooting the bow and arrow, and my dad had a big pile of fertilizer. He was in the garden, and, this garden, and had it all ready to go and everything else. Well, the boys, they had shot the arrows first, I guess they'd shot arrows into the big pile of fertilizer bags. So it was like 7 or 8 bags of fertilizer, one on top of the other, sitting against the wall in the corner of the shed. They shot arrows into them, and then they went over and they cut them open, and the fertilizer was all running down on the floor. Well, I took the bow and arrow away from them, and my aunt, she took them into the house and said, "What you boys been doing?" and all this kind of stuff. And the boys were just jumping up and down with energy. I don't know what she fed them, but I know why my dad called them Slingshot and Rubber Band, So later that day, my dad come home, and he found out about the fertilizer, and he blew his top, So it didn't go real well anyway. But what happened was not long after, Wayne decided to go down to the Keys. He wanted to visit the Keys, the Florida Keys, and he wanted to go to Key West, So he rented a car. Wayne always did everything big, never wasn't good enough that we all piled in the same car. Wayne wanted to rent a car, so Wayne rented a car, he wanted this great big car, and he just said, well, I rented this car. It was a great big brand new car, green color, I think it was, big station wagon he rented. And he says, now that I rented this car, he says, you guys follow along with your car too, and we'll drive with 2 cars, and we head down to the Keys. So it was about from there, Central Florida down to the Keys was about a 6-hour drive, I guess, 7 hours, maybe even 8 hours. I'm not exactly sure, but I remember driving down to the Keys. What happened was I was in Wayne's big station wagon in the back seat, and we were crossing the causeway, going down to the Keys. And I remember looking on both sides. The water, down there has a specific blue color. It's like a neon blue. It's like, I don't know of any place else that has water that color. It's absolutely beautiful. It's like a neon bluish, greenish color. It looks like an emerald, and it's beautiful, the water down there. I remember watching the water out of the car window, and I was kind of mesmerized by it as we were going across this causeway out toward the Keys, So we'd cross one island, then we'd cross another island. So we were driving along on that narrow freeway. It's not very wide. It's just 2 lanes wide, and it's 2 narrow lanes, And we were going, and I was looking down at this crystal clear blue water. It's awful pretty, And this guy was coming the other way. I seen him coming. Has sailboat on the back of his car on a trailer, and he had the mast all done and everything. Well, just as he come across us, and we were going across him, his mast on his sailboat swung free, and it come right down, and I could see it coming right for me. I was inside the car, though. Now, those big old cars were built awful heavy. Well, on the back of the window there, the window right next to my head right there was like a little way that the metal come down around the bottom of the window, and it made like a little ledge there, on those big old heavy cars. I mean, they were built like tanks. Well, that mast come right down and aimed right for that ledge, and I kind of shifted across in the seat. I saw it coming, and it hit with the awful boom. I mean, loud, right on that right on that little circle of the car, right in that crux there. It hit, and it like jammed right there. Bang! And you know what? That thing barely dented that car, and it didn't break the windshield. It just made a small little dent there. With that incredible force of that whole length of that mast. It must have been a 30-foot long mast, and sail attached to it too, It come down. It was almost like these guys what happened was almost like these guys that used to joust, and they had a long pole, and the pole would hit the other guy off the horse, That mast was like a long pole coming down into that little crux of that window, it made the awful loud bang when it hit. And Wayne pulled over, and the other guy pulled over, and they got out of their cars, Wayne went walking over. And, Wayne was quite an excitable fella. And I expected that Wayne was going to go into some sort of a rage or whatever. He didn't. He was calm. He went over and got the other guy's insurance information and stuff, So anyway, later that day, we headed off back down toward the Keys. And first place we stopped and we went to a place called IHOP, International House of Pancakes. And I remember I got 10 of these little pancakes, called silver dollars or whatever. So anyway, we had a pretty good little trip there. And I can't remember, I don't think the boys did anything bad on the rest of that time there. But That's why my dad called them slingshot and rubber band, is because they had so much energy and they would just, I'll tell you, I've never seen anything like it. Thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next show. Bye-bye, guys.